Hi everyone. So this is in continuation to our discussion which we have been discussing over some time right now, and particularly today we'll be looking into the data set of how data can be fortified, or I rather say what data can be taken as a dust, because this four-letter word dust, it holds a lot of value in terms of what data has to be negated, because right data set is going to give, or the right data set as an input data is going to give perhaps the output which is the need of the hour, particularly from the sustainability point of view. When we're talking about sustainability, I will walk you through Locarno classification. Locarno classification is a international classification of design per se, not only from the standpoint view of, so I'm working on multiple devices, so yeah. Uh, just give me a moment. Okay, before we talk about uh, the Locarno classification, particularly I'm going to talk about class number 15. But first I want to discuss about the footprint in terms of the classification footprint, which is important from the standpoint of developing machines, apparatus. So perhaps in the best of the sense, when we talk about technology, um, machine and apparatus is something which you cannot just hold it. You need support system to dismantle the same and then transport it to the destination. So perhaps here we are going to talk about, um, in very plain language, I'll try and make understand the classification, because classification itself is very important, because that's the most well versed data set. Because when any kind of ideation is done, when you're talking about ideation per se, it can be an idea, and when you pen it down, you need to look into the classification which is internationally acclaimed and use that classification to classify whatever you're doing. Even if you're coding, if you code with the classification, the result is going to be good. Um, a lot of synthetic data is being created just based on a certain data set, like a certain data set could be the clan or the family data set. Negate that, we don't need that. One data set can be the school, one data set can be the college, one data set could be the neighborhood. All these data sets negate to zero. Why I say so? Because even two people, or two, right now Trump is talking about alien, because according to him everybody is an alien right now. So whatever that classification is, they're different individuals. If even if you give them, the best data set is giving a set of questions and having a detailed answer from the other person without the intervention of technology, or perhaps what is called as AI, or what I call as RI. RI is real intelligence, because that is important to create models, because a lot of data is hallucinated right now, and hallucinated data is never going to solve the problems in terms of, even if something is um, being worked on the computing power, or it is an experiment, it's going to fail. So all the hypotheses are going to fail badly. Having said that, let's look into this classification, which is 123 slash 27, the letter G, the letter E. So I'll be doing this classification based not only on, there's a zillion classifications. So this particular thing is the old United States classification system of perhaps how machines have been uh, numbered or tagged, or it is the right tagging. And that is one reason, when you are doing any kind of a knockout search. So knockout search is particularly if you have the right or if you're able to identify the right pattern classification, you would be in a position to knock out it. Now, the point of contention here is, will the knockout technology work in India? The answer is big no. Um, Even a slight deviation in whatever we call it, we have these clean charts and whatnot. Um Trolling is for real. And when we say trolling is for real, rather than getting into that business model of sending legal notices to people, it is always good to pool resources and keep your uh, main crux or the core as trade secret, even in best of the, I would say, businesses. Because right now most of the businesses which are being run, those are not businesses per se, just what was there on the yellow pages, you're bringing it online in the year 25 or perhaps whatever year it was. That is not solving any problem. Rather, the data set itself has created a data set where the result itself is, I mean, it's negative. So let's talk about this. This classification 123 slash 27 GE 123 is, it is utilized for internal combustion engines, and 27 GE, it is kind of, is used for something where the word digest is being utilized. Now, how this work is particularly, uh, 27GE means gaseous fuel is supplied to the engine, and the fuel is not gasoline or diesel. So now, because we are getting into the EV sector, everybody's talking about EV without even understanding what EV is all about in real sense. So here, particularly this internal combustion engine is talking about the fuel is not gasoline or diesel, and the engine still has liquid fuel capability, and that's how sustainability angle can come into picture. So this is basically dual fuel. And then we have the other one is 123 slash 526, 123 slash 557. 123 slash 526 stands for fuel injection system for gaseous fuel. Um, when we talk about and replace 556 with 557, it is engine convertible or dual fluid or dual fuel, where it is a combination which is kind of a hybrid of liquid and gaseous. So these are the three important classification and the tagging part. And then we have the CPC. My favorite is CPC. I mean, whenever I did knockout searches until now, only once it has happened I was not able to knock out something. Otherwise, honestly speaking, nothing in this world is patentable if you go by the literal meaning of what patent is all about. So it's always just file the application as a defensive publication, keep the code to yourself and develop your business models, and that's how it should work. Not the other way around, where we are talking about the capitalistic way and we're trying to create a job sector stating that you need to pay annuity fees. Somebody misses the annuity fees, then you are blaming the person. So there's a lot of garbage around it, and this is not a Indian garbage, it's a global garbage which has been there for almost, I would say, 20 plus years. um, that being said, let's talk about the CPC here. um, CPC is basically a cooperative patent classification. So it's like EP stuff, European Union, and people have, and particularly a lot of mechanical work is, if you go to the historical data set, it was orchestrated in Europe and in some parts of United Kingdom. So we have F02B3 slash 00 engines using gaseous fuel. Then we have F02B7 slash 06. It's basically for fumigation, adding gaseous fuel to intake air. Then we have F02M21 slash 02. It's an apparatus for supplying gaseous fuel to the engine. F02B3 slash 06 details, which is talking about or relates to gaseous fuel admission. Then if I have to look into, okay, so there's something called as forward reference and backward reference. In many ways, I call it like a parent-child kind of combination when we're talking about technological landscape. Perhaps there we have F02D 19/00. That is for controlling engines that can switch between liquid and gaseous fuels. Then we have exhaust after treatment, where you can change the fuel type, which is F01N3/08. We have engine control computing power that must remap. So it's a remapping, which I talked about earlier also. It's kind of a refill. Remap injection when fuel changes. So this is particularly under F02D 41/00 and 41/30. Then we have B23P6/00, remanufacturing or reconditioning an engine to accept the new fuel system. The other one is for the supercharging. So all these EVs and everything which they're talking about, it comes under, or perhaps the one I like personally is F02B 13/00, 33/00. It is for supercharging or variable compression tricks, often needed when you run out of gas. And then, so this is particularly, if I have to talk about the synopsis here, it would be a dual fluid which has both the liquid and the gaseous component in a IC engine. IC here is internal combustion engine, and we need to look into what is the injection, or what is being injected, what kind of gas has been injected, what are the convertible engines which are being utilized, and the engine control strategies. I personally believe the framework doesn't change. It is always the strategy around controlling the engine, whether what switch has to be put in and all that stuff. And that makes the switch between fuels possible. And we need to talk about sustainability and understand sustainability. So whatever we are doing has to be sustainable enough, and we should not be utilizing non-renewable resources. So all these oils and something which is non-renewable is, it doesn't even have my attention. So that's how I like to put it in very simple words, because many ways somebody was talking about, or perhaps there were so-called fake I would say, obviously, because there's so much of data online. So just to understand their data set, so I get a lot of fake emails just trying to understand the strategy. So oil doesn't have any importance, because mining oil and everything, we are playing with nature, and we cannot allow that, stating that the sustainability is what we need to focus on, and that is under the sustainable development goals. So there's no oil mining, there is no diamond mining. Everybody's getting into sustainable lab grown, and so on the face of it, tech has been developed to a level where even lab grown stuff is very cheap, because there are so many players in the market. So this is done. Now I'll shift the focus to the industrial design. Industrial design is like, okay, I have to take an example of industrial design if I have to. Okay, and perhaps just a simple industrial design. So this particular thing is industrial design. I mean the ornamental look, how it is perceived by the pupils. Pupils are, because if you go by the physics of how light enters and how the brain neurons are activated, and that is why light source is very important, and that is one reason the land which we call as India today has a lot of value. Not only India, perhaps the neighboring ASEAN and the whole region, if we have to map it out. And when the heat map was created, it was very, very clear that the Asian countries are going to play a pivotal role, because you have to just see how the equator moves, and how the earth is moving around the equator and how much is being tilted, and perhaps there are different dynamics around it. A lot of data set is being churned around the black hole, so I'm not getting into that. Maybe that we can discuss some other day. So let's just focus on the industrial design, because most of the folks, they're sitting just with the industrial design certificate, and they're trying to go to the investors and asking for investment, because that investment will never come in, because industrial design per se doesn't have value. Industrial design is more to do with a kind of a trophy which doesn't have value, because if there's even an indentation different, you go to the court and all, the damages which are being issued is way less. But it's a good way or a tool to create a tagging tag for the acumen of whatever business you are creating today or tomorrow, or you have already created. So you need to see and do due diligence of the whatever you have in best possible way. Okay, so I talked about Locarno classification. So when we talk about machine per se, it is under the clause 15, and the subsection is 09. So this particular clause talks about different kind of machines. Machines is nothing but apparatus in the patenting world. Boring machines, broaching machines, drilling machines, grinding machines, honing machines, lapping machines, latch, machine tools, milling machines, planing machines, sawing machines, shaping machines, slotting machine, sand blasting machine. So yeah, centrifugal casting machine, everything comes under. So perhaps I was looking into this data set of 1509, and in that context, in India only 2 applications have been filed. So you can understand, in such a population, or whatever the population is, the real population or a inflated population or a synthetic data, only 2 applications are filed. Now perhaps when does machine go into miscellaneous? So miscellaneous is always, the sub tagging is 99. So in this particular case, machine is 15-99. So if the design claim is illustrating only the strand, frame, casing, or the housing. Housing is basically the cover, so we call cover as a housing. And the machine function is no longer readable, the article or the machine is moved to 15-99. Then we have hand-held power tools. So I talked about, we can take it as a tool. This is handheld. Handheld means whatever you can hold by hand. Grinder, drill are excluded. So hand tool is under the classification of Locarno classification 08/05. I'll walk you through robots. I just want to finish it ASAP now. Robots whose contouring is dictated mainly by their control and the vision function, which is under 1801. These are optical devices, and particularly if you're talking about the display and the control panels, that is under 1499. Again, 99 stands for miscellaneous. If we have to, okay, how to understand the classification. So I'll just talk about a little bit about numbers and some stuff. If the article is stationary industrial equipment again is kind of a machine that removes material or is contouring the metal, that is particularly under 1509. If it is portable or handheld, so these devices are called handheld devices. That is moved to 08-05. It is robotic and the novelty lies in the head or the vision housing. It is 1801 or 1499. I just talked about it a little earlier, so you have to go back to the video and look into it. It's an accessory 15-07. Only a casing and the machine tool is not visible. Again, it's miscellaneous. So article designation is very important as to the classification. So in this particular case, claims machine and only shows the outer cabinet. So you're not able to give it the right classification, like whether you should go with 15-09 or 15-99. So that is where you need to provide those pictorial representation, illustrating with the cabinet, with the housing, without the housing. That's how it works. Okay. Honestly speaking, when you're working on the design aspect, it has to be done from the viewpoint of having an architectural framework. And when I say architectural framework, it means you have to provide all the views so that if somebody is copying it and you're sending the legal notice, at least it is clear that the intent of the other party was to copy. So that's one of the data sets. And second thing is, if you are going to any of these conferences and you're part of the protocols and everything, it's good to have a caution notice stating that everything is under copyright. If somebody is still infringing upon it in any way whatsoever, that would be a cognizable offense under the applicable laws. Just like that. It's that simple. Be open-ended with your caution notices so that if anything happens, you're able to at least have a first line of defense, which is important. So in short, we discussed about Locarno classification, we discussed about IPC. So perhaps we covered a lot of aspects, and this particular stuff of whatever we discussed can be part of the IMPUL network. It is one of the modules where we are doing the IPC tagging, CPC tagging, and then there's sub-tagging again. It's not that whatever is available on the government databases, that's the way we are working. We are channelizing it to the next level of the portal formation and developing protocols which will create new protocols to connect and develop and stabilize the chaos which the integration of online and offline world. So right now, I mean, honestly speaking, if I have to understand or divide, there are only four capping. One is the online world. Right now I'm in the online world, or rather I would say it's a hybrid right now. Online world, offline world is you're without these handheld devices and just doing your chores, whatever you're supposed to do. Then there's something called as remote, and there's something called as hybrid. And there are certain times where you are part of all the four slices. So if you take it as a circular economy, so these are the four quadrants, and each quadrant is supposed to do this. What we have developed on the IMPUL network is opening another portal that will be another device altogether, operating systems. We are working very hard on that, and perhaps, I mean, the first launch of the same, it will take a couple of years before we launch it. It'll only be available at an alpha version for few of the folks, which would be selected based on loads of parameters, and that has nothing to do with my associations with my current companies or my current ethos of the way I work, because an invention coming into reality is there. We have the use cases, but it's just that how this invention can be utilized to take the humanity or connect people to a level where they can increase their cognitive ability. So the vision and mission statement is very simple. to increase the cognitive ability so that uh, we are able to utilize whatever the tech is in the best possible manner and upgrade ourselves, because upskilling is the key, and human capacity building is going to hold value for next 365 days in, and it has to be rigorous. I mean, there's so much of deficiency of technology because uh, just providing this platform has not been utilized in the best possible way, and because of that the data set which we have is not being able to work out to solve the problems which are existing in the society. And particularly we need to look into the sustainable development goals as stated by the UN Charter. Thank you for watching this out, and perhaps you can send us DM, we'll look into it and somebody will respond. Thank you for watching this out. Have a great day ahead.